case anybody was interested on how I'm doing this, I've just got the deer out here on the tarp. I've got the dog chained up and he's not too happy about it. I'm just taking a quarter at a time. I've got one of the back legs in right now, and when I get all the meat cut off the bone of it, I'll come out and get the other one, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if I've mentioned before, but I'm not going to get any roast or anything out of this. I'm going to grind every bit of it into burger meat. So I'm just going to work at getting all this meat off the bones, and then we'll get to grinding. Okay, so I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to do a voiceover on this one. So what's happening here is I've cut all the meat off the bone, and I've cut away all of the fat and skin and anything that wasn't just pure red meat. And I was told that it's so lean that you can't just grind it without adding fat to it, and that's just not true. I pushed this whole deer through this grinder, and it did not clog one single time. But I will tell you, I do add a little bit of fat to it, but it's not in the conventional way. What I do is I go to, say, Walmart and get, the 8 or 10 pound tube of hamburger that you see here that's just as high in fat content as I can get. And what I'll do is I'll add a 3-to-1 mixture of venison to beef. So I'll put 3 pounds of deer meat and 1 pound of the beef hamburger. And I'm switching here to a medium grinder plate. I had the largest one in to roughly chop it up at first. And so what I do is I run the chunk meat through on the largest plate there on the left, and then I switch to the medium plate for the second grind. And the second grind is where I'll introduce the 1 pound of hamburger to 3 pounds of deer meat. And that just helps to give it a little bit better of a flavor and also lubricate it a little bit while it's cooking. It's a lot easier to do that than try to track down somewhere to get, pork fat or beef fat, especially around deer season. So here you'll see, I'm adding quite a bit of deer meat to a little bit of hamburger at a time. Just to kind of get it mixed in there. And this little meat grinder, I think was like 89 bucks on Amazon. But my wife got it for free for a review. I've got no complaints over this little thing. It went through the entire deer no problem. Now you'll see there that there's the lighter pink hamburger mixed in pretty well with the darker red deer meat. And I already went through and packaged up the rest of the deer, and this is actually the next day. But I thought I would show how I package all the meat. So I got freezer bags, and I would put the meat in the freezer bag and then suck the air out of it, just, with my mouth, and then zip it up where it's kind of vacuum sealed. And just roll out a square of butcher paper or, freezer paper, whatever you want to call it. And then usually I didn't struggle with it this much, but go figure the time I video it. But I just take a knife and it zips right down the paper. It would take me longer to fiddle with scissors than it would just to zip a knife down the paper. And I keep my knives pretty sharp. So since I'm putting them in freezer bags first and then in the paper, I don't worry so much about getting the paper absolutely airtight, although this is how I've seen, other more professional type people do it. I've also seen them pull up the front and the back and kind of roll it down and then roll the sides up, but this is the way that most folks do it, I believe. And basically the only reason I put I wrapped it in paper in addition to the freezer bag, was so that I could ride on it. The freezer bags, just kind of smeared and wouldn't hold. That little B that I put up in the left-hand corner that I just pointed at indicates that this was a buck. In case I go out and get another deer, I wanna be able to know, which is which. And then I put the date on it, and I also put the weight on there as well. Okay, so what we've ended up with here is 1 pound tenderloin, and those chops are 2 1/8 and 2 1/4 pounds, and then there's the weights on the rest. And we ended up with 45 1/8 pounds of deer meat altogether, with 36 1/8 of that being pure venison. So you don't get very much meat out of a deer, but you get enough.